Hello students, welcome to zoology class. Hope all of you are fine. Today, in continuation to my presentations on genetics, I am delivering my fifth topic, and the topic is human genetic disorders. So what are human genetic disorders? As all of you know that genes are the basic unit of heredity and they hold the genetic information in the form of DNA, which can be translated into useful proteins to carry out the life processes. And these genes undergo a mutation sometimes, which changes the instructions to form the protein, and due to which the proteins does not work properly and the disorder is caused, and such disorders are known as the genetic disorders. It means genes are responsible for the proper functioning of the body, and if there is some mutation in the genes and then proteins are not formed properly and proteins do not work properly, and then a disorder is caused. And such disorders which are caused due to the mutation or change in the genes of a human being, they are known as the genetic disorders. And some genetic disorders are innate. Innate means that is they are present at the time of the birth of a human being. But some disorders, they are acquired due to the mutations in a particular gene. So some disorders, they are present in the human beings at the time of the birth, and they are known as innate disorders. And some disorders, they are acquired due to some changes or mutations in the genes, and they are acquired afterwards in the lifetime. So disorders, that is the genetic disorders, they are of two types. They are Mendelian disorders, that is the disorders in a single gene, and the chromosomal disorders, that is the mutation in the chromosomes, and the chromosomes are either missing or duplicated. So genetic disorders are of two types. Number one is Mendelian disorders and number two is chromosomal disorders. Mendelian disorders, they are the disorders because of the single gene, and the chromosomal disorders are because of the changes in the chromosomes, and in these chromosomal disorders, the chromosomes are either missing or they are duplicated. So this is the flow chart showing the different types of genetic disorders. So all the genetic disorders, they are divided into two types. One is Mendelian disorders and others are the chromosomal disorders. And if we further study the Mendelian disorders, they can be studied under two headings. One is recessively inherited disorders or diseases, and the second one is dominantly inherited diseases. So these are the two types of Mendelian disorders. And if we further go down the line, then these recessively inherited diseases are the disorders. There are two types. One is autosomal, that is because of the autosomal chromosomes, and the other is the sex link, that is the disorder is present in the sex chromosomes. And the autosomal chromosomal diseases, autosomal Mendelian disorders, they are phenylketonuria, then albinism, then sickle cell anemia and thalassemia. And the sex linked, as already you know, that these are the color blindness and the hemophilia. Then the second type of Mendelian disorders, they are the dominantly inherited diseases, and they are having only autosomal type of disorders. There is no sex linked in dominantly inherited diseases. And the examples of these disorders are kind of dwarfism, then polydactyly, and then Huntington chorea. So these are the three types of the autosomal dominantly inherited Mendelian disorder. Then the second type of genetic disorders, they are the chromosomal disorders, and we can study these chromosomal disorders under two headings. One is the autosomal chromosomal disorders and others are the sex-linked chromosomal disorders. And under the autosomal chromosomal disorders, we can study Down syndrome, and in sex-linked chromosomal disorder, we can study Klinefelter syndrome, Turner syndrome, YO abnormality and XYY abnormality. So these are the different types of genetic disorders present in human beings, which are broadly categorized in two types, Mendelian disorders and chromosomal disorders. And now we will study each example of this genetic disorder from here to here one by one. So first of all, we will start with the Mendelian disorders. In human beings, Mendelian disorder is a type of genetic disorder primarily resulting due to the alteration in one gene or as a result of abnormalities in the genome, and such a condition can be seen since birth, and it can be deduced on the basis of the family history using the family tree, and the analysis hence carried out is known as the pedigree analysis. So Mendelian disorders, they are basically because of the alteration in one gene or in the whole of the genome, and this condition is present at the time of the birth, and we can study these disorders on the basis of the family history using the family tree. And such type of study, when we do according to the family history in a family tree, this is known as pedigree analysis. And these genetic disorders or the Mendelian disorders, they are very rare and they may affect one person in every 1,000 or a million. So these type of disorders, that is a Mendelian disorders, they are very rare. Then we will start different types of Mendelian disorders. First of all, I will take up autosomal linked recessively inherited disorder. You can refer the flow chart of different types of the disorders, then you can study one by one in a proper way. So I am starting with the first type of Mendelian disorder, that is the autosomal linked recessively inherited disorder, and in this category the first disorder is sickle cell anemia. So this is a type of autosomal recessive genetic Mendelian disorder, and in this Mendelian disorder, and according to Mendelian genetics, its inheritance pattern follows the inheritance from the two carrying parents. So if the parents are having this disorder, the offsprings or the next generation will have this type of the disorder, and it is caused when the glutamic acid, this is amino acid, this is present in the 6th position of the beta globulin chain of the hemoglobin molecule. It is replaced by a valine. So you know that the proteins are made up of amino acids, and our hemoglobin, which is present in the blood, it is also a protein, and in this protein molecule of hemoglobin, on the 6th position there is present glutamic acid in the beta globulin chain of the hemoglobin, and when this glutamic acid, it is replaced by valine, so then there is some change, and this type of sickle cell anemia is caused. And the mutant hemoglobin, in which the glutamic acid is replaced by valine, so this mutant hemoglobin molecule, it undergoes a physical change which changes the biconcave shape of the RBCs into sickle shape. So the shape of the RBCs is changed when this type of change occurs in the hemoglobin molecule, and this is known as the sickle cell anemia, because the cells instead of biconcave shape, they become sickle shape, and this reduces the oxygen binding capacity of the hemoglobin. So anemia is caused to such a person. So this is a sickle cell anemia. Next disorder in this category is phenylketonuria, and this genetic disorder is also autosomal recessive Mendelian disorder, and it is an inborn error caused due to the decreased metabolism of the amino acid phenylalanine. So in this type of disorder, that is phenylketonuria, the affected person does not has the enzyme that converts phenylalanine to tyrosine, and as a result phenylalanine accumulates in the body and it is converted into many derivatives which results in mental retardation. So what happens in phenylketonuria? So this disorder is autosomal recessive in nature, and this is caused due to the decreased metabolism level of the amino acid phenylalanine. So phenylalanine, it is a amino acid, and in this disorder the affected person does not have the enzyme which converts the phenylalanine to tyrosine, which is the normal way. But as a result of absence of this enzyme which converts the amino acid phenylalanine into tyrosine, phenylalanine accumulates in the body and many other derivatives are formed from this phenylalanine, and this results in mental retardation of the human being, and this type of disorder is known as the phenylketonuria. So this is a second example of the autosomal linked recessively inherited disorder. Next comes the thalassemia. So this is the type of disorder in which the body makes the abnormal amount of hemoglobin, and as a result large number of RBCs are destroyed that leads to anemia, and it is a X-linked recessive disease, and facial bone deformities, abdominal swelling, dark urine, these are some of the symptoms of thalassemia. So thalassemia is a fatal disease, and in this type of disorder body makes abnormal amount of hemoglobin, and so large number of RBCs they are destroyed due to the extra amount of the hemoglobin, and this leads to the anemia, because whenever there is a loss of RBCs this leads to anemia. And then many deformities like facial bone deformities are caused. There is a swelling in the abdomen and dark urine is passed out. So these are the symptoms of thalassemia. Next comes the albinism. This is a disorder due to the lack of the enzyme in the pathway which leads to the formation of melanin from tyrosine. So this disorder is caused when tyrosine does not form melanin, because the enzyme responsible for the formation of melanin from tyrosine is lacking, and because of this melanin is not formed, and so melanin is the enzyme or the substance which gives the coloration to the body, and if melanin is not formed due to the presence or due to the lack of the enzyme, then skin becomes very fair and hairs almost become white, and the iris of the eye is without any pigment. So this is the albinism. And so albinism, it is not a disease, and persons affected with albinism, they lead a perfectly healthy life, but they are highly susceptible to skin or eye disorders when exposed to strong light. So this is the disorder, that is albinism. It is caused due to the lack of the enzyme which leads to the formation of melanin from tyrosine, and in this disorder the person leads a healthy life, but he can cause skin or eye disorders very easily when exposed to strong light, and the skin is very fair in these persons, hairs are almost white, and iris of eye is without any pigment. So these are the different types of disorders in this category. Then comes the sex-linked disorders, and in this disorder two types of diseases come. One is the hemophilia and other is the color blindness, and you have already studied about these two diseases which are sex-linked disorders in the category of the Mendelian disorders. And what is hemophilia? This is a type of sex-linked recessive disorder, and according to the genetic inheritance pattern, the unaffected carrier mother passes on the hemophilic genes to sons, and it is a very rare type of disease among females, because female has two X chromosomes, and the gene for hemophilia is present on the X chromosomes, and mother should have hemophilic gene on both the X chromosomes, and if she has hemophilic gene on one of the X chromosomes, then she is a carrier. But father becomes hemophilic only if it is present on the X chromosome. So this is a rare disease among females, and this is a disorder in which blood does not clot normally because the protein which helps in the clotting of blood, it is affected, and therefore a person suffering from hemophilia usually has the symptoms of unexplained and excessive bleeding from a minor cut or injury. This type of genetic disorder is caused when an affected gene is located on the X chromosome, and therefore males are more affected by this disease because they have only one X chromosome. Then comes the color blindness. Color blindness, it is also a sex-linked recessively inherited disease, and color blindness can be simply defined as the trouble in seeing or identifying colors like blue, green and red. And there are some rare cases where the person cannot see and identify any colors at all, and the person with this syndrome or the color blindness finds difficulties in differentiating the colors with shades, and this syndrome is known as a color vision problem or the color vision deficiency. So color blindness is also a sex-linked recessively inherited disease, and in this disease or the disorder, the person is unable to identify the blue, green and red color. But in some cases, or the rare cases, the person cannot identify any color, and this type of disease or the disorder is known as color vision deficiency. Then comes the third category of the Mendelian disorder, and they are the dominantly inherited autosomal disorders. And in this category, there are examples of three disorders. Number one is dwarfism, and you know what is dwarfism? It is a kind of skeletal abnormality in individuals. The individuals are short-heighted. And then comes the polydactyly. So what is poly means many, dactyly means fingers. So in this type of disorder, presence of extra fingers on hands or extra toes on feet. You must have seen some persons, they have an additional finger on hand or an additional toe in their foot. So this type of disorder is known as polydactyly. And the third example is the Huntington chorea. So it is due to the autosomal dominant gene, and in this disorder there is uncontrolled twitching of voluntary muscles and mental damage, and this disease may not show up till the age of 25 or 50 years, and it is a late acting dominant disorder. So this is a dominantly inherited autosomal disorder, and in this disease what happens that there is a uncontrolled twitching of the voluntary muscle. For example, the muscles of the eyelid, they go on twitching uncontrolled, and this there is a mental damage also in this type of disorder, and this disorder may not show up till the age of 25 or even 50 years, and this is a late acting dominant disorder. So these are the examples of the dominantly inherited autosomal disorders. Next comes the second type of disorders, and they are the chromosomal disorders. We have studied till now about the Mendelian disorders, and now they are the chromosomal disorders. And chromosomal disorders are the abnormalities or the types of genetic disorders, and they are caused due to the change in one or many chromosomes or the abnormal arrangement of chromosomes. And there are different types of chromosomal abnormalities, and these chromosomal disorders, they are because of the abnormalities in the chromosomes, and when we can study it under the two headings. One is the aneuploidy and other is the polyploidy. And in aneuploidy type of chromosomal disorder, in this condition there is a loss or gain of chromosomes due to the abnormal segregation of genes during cell division. In these disorders, during cell division, there is abnormal separation of the genes, and so there is a loss or gain of chromosome. And in polyploidy, It is a condition in which the count of the entire set of the chromosome increases due to the failure of the cytokinesis in cell division, and it is mostly observed in plants. So this type of disorder, that is polyploidy, it is observed mostly in plants, and in this condition the whole of the set of the chromosome increases, and this is because of the failure of the cytokinesis in the process of the cell division. And in human beings, when there is extra copy of chromosomes in one of the pairs, it is called trisomy. Means you know that there is a pair of each chromosome, and when there is present an extra chromosome, we call it trisomy. And when one of the chromosome from pair is missing or lacking, this is known as monosomy. Mono means one, tri means three. So these are the two types of the conditions in chromosomal disorders. And the examples of chromosomal disorders we will study one by one. First comes the autosomal chromosomal disorder, and because the chromosome of the autosomes, they are affected in this type of disorder. And in this type of autosomal chromosomal disorder, we will study the disorder which is known as the Down syndrome. So this is the child showing Down syndrome, and this syndrome is a type of trisomy, as there is an extra copy of chromosome number 21. You know that we have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and 22 are autosomes and one pair is sex chromosome, and in 21st chromosome there is an extra copy of chromosome. So chromosome number 21, it has 3 chromosomes instead of 2. So this is known as trisomy of chromosome number 21st, and then this is the disorder which is known as Down syndrome, and it is named so after the person who discovered this chromosomal disorder, and he was the Langdon Down. Langdon Down discovered this disorder, and so this disorder is known as Down syndrome. And the symptoms of the Down syndrome are as under, that is, the person is short and has a small and round head. The person who is Down syndrome has a small and round head. Then physical and mental development is retarded. Then furrowed tongue and partially open mouth and the broad palm. So the person suffering from this type of disorder has a small and round head, mouth keeps open, then palm is broad, and he is physically and mentally retarded. So this is the Down syndrome, which is caused due to the trisomy of chromosome number 21. Then comes the sex-linked chromosomal disorder, and in this category we will study some examples, and number one is Klinefelter syndrome. And in this Klinefelter syndrome, this is caused due to the presence of additional X chromosome in males. So this disorder is present in the males, and this is known as Klinefelter syndrome, and this syndrome is caused because of the additional X chromosome in males, and this results in chromosome count of 47 instead of 46. That is, 44 are autosomes plus XX is the normal sex chromosome plus Y. So the XY is the normal sex chromosome in males, but there is an additional copy of X chromosome. So total count becomes 47. There is additional X chromosome, and such a person has a masculine physique. So in this type of syndrome, the person has a masculine physique, more developed, and it has feminine characters also, like the development of breast, and such individuals are sterile, that is, they are not able to reproduce. So this is the diagram showing Klinefelter syndrome, that is, it has a masculine body, but there is present some feminine structures like the development of the breast, and such males are sterile, they are unable to reproduce. So this is the Klinefelter syndrome. Next comes the Turner syndrome. So unlike Klinefelter syndrome, in this chromosomal disorder, there is absence of one X chromosome in females. You know that females have two sex chromosomes, and in this Turner syndrome there is only one X chromosome. So the total chromosome number decreases to 45 instead of 46. 44 are the autosomes and X0, this is the sex chromosome, because one X is absent. And the symptoms of Turner syndrome are like that these females are sterile, they are unable to reproduce, and they have rudimentary ovaries, and there is absence of secondary sexual characters. That is, there is absence of breast, and then there are secondary sexual characters, they are absent, and these are sterile, and they have rudimentary ovaries, means the ovaries are not well developed in such females. So this is the Turner syndrome. Next comes the YO abnormality, and this abnormality is due to the absence of the X chromosome in males, and so this individual has 45 chromosomes with karyotype Y0, but this is not possible, so such individuals does not survive. And the last chromosomal disorder is XYY abnormality, and in this individual, this is a male with extra Y chromosome, and instead of XY there is XYY in the sex chromosomes. And such individuals, such males, they are taller than normal people, they have reduced intelligence, they are more aggressive than normal males, and there is overproduction of male hormone which is testosterone, and they have criminal or brutal tendencies. So they are very aggressive, they are more they have more height because they are taller than the normal people, because they have overproduction of the male hormone, that is the testosterone, and they have criminal tendencies. So this is the last type of chromosomal abnormality, which is due to the presence of extra Y chromosomes in males. So these are the different types of chromosomal disorders. So this is all about the genetic disorders, which are studied under two headings, that is the Mendelian disorders and the chromosomal disorders. So this is all for today's presentation. Now you have to prepare notes, you have to go through this presentation, and if you find any difficulty, we can discuss those doubts later on. Thank you.
चार बन गया है।